People talk a lot about balance, work-life balance, time for everything, living in harmony. And yeah, it sounds good. But here's something I've learned the hard way. Balance and focus are not the same thing. In fact, they often don't mix. When you're focused, you're locked in on one thing. You give it your time, energy, and attention until you make it happen. You don't care about equal time for everything. You care about the result. But here's the problem. When you're that focused, people who live for balance will not understand you. They'll say you're obsessed. They'll say you're greedy. They'll say you're too money-minded because you're always working. They don't see it as commitment. They see it as imbalance. The truth is, people who chase balance are often distracted by what focused people are doing. They look at your grind, your sacrifice, and instead of asking, what's their goal, they ask, why are they working so much? And that's why they stay where they are, watching, talking, but never really building anything big. People who chase balance often convince themselves that life is about not overdoing it. They tell themselves they don't want to burn out. They want to enjoy life. They want to have time for everything. And on the surface, that sounds wise. Nobody wants to be miserable. Nobody wants to work to death. But here's the trap. They mistake comfort for happiness. They think taking it easy, keeping things balanced, is the path to peace. And that's why they end up broke and stuck, but still manage to feel okay about it. Why? Because they've trained themselves to find comfort in being unproductive. They'll sit for hours watching TV, scrolling through social media, and call it self-care. They'll say, I deserve this rest, even if there was nothing they needed to recover from. They find entertainment easier than effort. They would rather watch someone else live their dream on a screen than pay the price to live their own. Balance becomes their excuse to avoid the discomfort of growth. Because let's be real, focus is uncomfortable. Focus means saying no to a lot of things other people say yes to. It means long hours where you're the only one still working when everyone else is resting. It means sacrificing short-term pleasure for long-term gain. And here's what they don't realize. You can't build something big in your life without going out of balance for a season. If you want to build wealth, grow a business, master a skill, you have to be willing to let one area of your life take priority for a while. That's not being unhealthy. That's how you break through. But people who worship balance don't want that. They want all areas of life to feel safe and equal all the time. That's why they never go deep into anything. They never master a skill. They never build wealth. They spread themselves so thin trying to keep balance that they never put enough weight on any one area to make it grow. They think they're avoiding risk, but they're actually avoiding progress. They think they're staying safe, but they're just staying small. And here's the painful truth. When you're focused, you will make people who want balance feel uncomfortable. Not because you're wrong, but because your actions remind them of the action they're not taking. Your intensity exposes their complacency. And instead of asking themselves if maybe they should focus too, they'll label you. They'll call you obsessed. They'll say you're all about the money or too serious about work. But obsession is just focus with a purpose. And every great breakthrough in life, whether it's building wealth, building a career, or building yourself, comes from someone who was willing to go all in, even if the rest of the world thought they were crazy. Here's the irony. The same people who judge you for focusing too much will be the same people asking you for help later when they finally get tired of being broke. They'll wonder how you got lucky, when the truth is, luck had nothing to do with it. You just chose focus over balance. Because here's the real difference. Balance feels good now, focus feels good later. Balance gives you immediate comfort, focus gives you lasting freedom. Balance fills your hours, focus builds your future. And the most dangerous thing about the comfort of balance, it makes time disappear without you realizing it. One day you wake up, you're 5 years older. Your bank account hasn't changed, your skills haven't grown, and you can't even remember where all the time went. That's the hidden cost of keeping balance, when you should have been focusing. I've seen this over and over again. People who chase balance too early in life spend decades in quiet frustration. They never risk enough to win big, but they don't realize they're losing by default. Because if you're not moving forward, you're not staying still, you're falling behind. So here's the question you have to ask yourself. Are you chasing balance because you truly need it, or because it's your excuse to avoid the grind that focus requires? If you're broke, if you're stuck, if you're not where you want to be, maybe it's not more balance you need. Maybe it's more focus. And here's what's crazy. Once you've built something big, once you've achieved freedom, you can bring balance back. But in the building stage, balance is a luxury you can't afford. You have to go all in, because anything less won't break the gravity of your current situation. If you're always balanced, you're always safe. But if you're always safe, you're always small. And no one builds a bigger life by staying small. So maybe it's time to stop trying to make everything equal. Maybe it's time to pick one thing worth building and go all in, even if the people around you don't get it. Because here's the truth. People who chase balance watch the clock. People who focus change their life. People love to say, I just don't have enough time. I hear it from broke people, from young professionals, from even those who claim they want to start a business. They say it like time is this rare resource that only the rich have more of. But here's the truth. The rich and the poor both have the same exact 24 hours in a day. Time is the most equal thing in this world. The difference is not how much time we have, but how much focus we have. You do not need more time. You need more focus. I used to think, if only I had more hours, I could do more. I thought that the reason I wasn't growing was because my schedule was already full. But then I had a realization that changed everything. God is the one who designed time. He gave us 24 hours. And I trust that's exactly the amount we need. If we needed more, he would have made it more. That means the problem isn't the clock. It's how we use the hours we already have. And here's where most people mess it up. They confuse balance with progress. When you're focused, people who live balanced will criticize you. They'll say you're too money-minded, too obsessed, too busy working. But the truth is, they're just uncomfortable seeing someone so locked in while they're distracted. People who love balance are often more comfortable being broke, watching TV for hours, scrolling on their phone, and convincing themselves that they deserve to rest. The scary part? That rest becomes their lifestyle. They live in comfort while their bank account stays empty. They feel good about today while making no investment for tomorrow. I've learned this. Focus changes how you see time. When you're focused, every hour has purpose. You stop wasting hours on things that don't move you forward. You become intentional with your day. You start asking, if I spend this next hour here, will it take me closer to my goal or keep me where I am? And if the answer is keep me where I am, you cut it out. No hesitation. I stopped saying, I don't have time, and started asking, how can I make time? I cut out the noise. I stopped saying yes to invitations that had nothing to do with my goals. I replaced passive activities like binge watching and endless scrolling with learning, selling, and building. And here's something that might shock you. If you waste just 2 hours a day, that's 730 hours a year. That's more than 30 days, an entire month of your life just gone. Imagine what that month could do if it was focused on building skills, expanding your network, or creating a product. This shift completely changed my results. Before, I had balance but no progress. After, I had focus, and my income reflected it. When I started my business, I made the decision to give my full attention to it. I treated my time like gold. Instead of spending evenings watching shows or relaxing like most people do, I invested those hours in learning e-commerce, understanding online selling platforms, and mastering how to persuade customers. At first, it was exhausting. But soon, something happened that most balanced people never experience. I started getting momentum. Every day I dedicated to learning and building meant my business was one step further ahead. When we took our products online, focus became even more important. I didn't just list items and hope for the best. I studied how online buyers think, tested different product photos, adjusted my descriptions, improved delivery processes, and made sure our customer service was fast. While other people were scrolling social media for fun, I was studying it for profit. The result? Almost nationwide customers, daily orders. And one of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced in business, waking up in the morning, checking my phone, and seeing multiple orders waiting to be processed while I was asleep. That didn't happen because I had more time than anyone else. It happened because I focused the time I had. I realized something powerful. When you are truly focused, you compress results. What takes others months or years to build can be done in weeks or days, not because you're rushing, but because you're removing all the wasted time. Now, here's where this ties back to money. If you don't respect your 24 hours, you'll never respect the opportunities that come into it. Focus trains you to maximize everything you're given. And when you maximize, you multiply. Balance feels safe, but focus creates growth. Balance is watching time pass. Focus is using time as a weapon. Balance says, I'll do it when I have time. Focus says, I'll make time because this matters. I get it. Focus isn't easy. It means saying no when others say yes. It means having nights where you're working while others are relaxing. It means being misunderstood by people who think balance is the goal. But I promise you, the reward is worth it. Because the reality is, those who chase balance without first achieving progress are just decorating their prison cell. They're comfortable in the same place, year after year. Focus is the key that opens the door. When I look back now, hitting 100K plus months didn't happen because I was smarter than anyone else or because I got lucky. It happened because I respected my time enough to focus it on what mattered most. You already have the time. The question is, will you focus it? Here's why focus naturally leads to financial breakthroughs faster than balance. Growth requires intention, and intention requires attention. Where you put your attention, that is where your focus will go. It's a simple truth most people ignore. Whatever you give your attention to will grow. If you give your attention to distractions, they will grow and take more of your time. If you give your attention to your fears, they will grow and control your decisions. But if you give your attention to building something meaningful, a business, a skill, a goal, that will grow too. There's a saying that's stuck with me, where attention goes, energy flows. And that's not just a nice quote, it's a law in life. Whatever you focus on will pull more of your energy, and as you feed it daily, it gains strength. The more you keep your energy flowing in one direction, the faster results come. Think of it like water cutting through rock. One drop doesn't do anything, but if that water flows in the same place long enough, it can carve deep channels and reshape the landscape. Focus works the same way. The longer you keep your energy flowing toward a goal, the more momentum you create, and eventually, momentum takes over. In physics, this is called overcoming inertia. Inertia is an object's resistance to change. If something is standing still, it wants to stay still. If it's moving, it wants to keep moving. Starting is always the hardest because you're pushing against stillness. It takes more energy to get a ball rolling than to keep it rolling. But once it's rolling, you don't have to push as hard. That's exactly how my business worked. In the beginning, selling online felt like pushing a giant rock uphill. I had to figure out the platforms, learn how to write good product descriptions, study what customers respond to, test prices, improve packaging, and deal with shipping problems. Every step took mental energy because I had never done it before. But here's what made the difference. I stayed focused long enough to break through that initial resistance. I didn't split my attention between 10 different business ideas. I didn't chase every shiny object. I put my attention on making my online selling work, and all my energy flowed into it. Then something amazing happened. The problems that used to take me hours to figure out became automatic. Listing products became fast. Packaging became smooth. Customer service became second nature. Orders started coming in without me having to constantly advertise. At one point, I realized I was waking up to orders every morning. Even while I was asleep, the business was running. That's momentum. I no longer needed the same intense level of focus on those first steps because the system was already moving forward on its own. My focus could now shift to bigger strategies, scaling up, and exploring new opportunities. That's the power of focus. It compresses time. It allows you to do in a short period what balanced people can't do even in years, because they keep starting and stopping, never pushing hard enough in one direction to break through inertia. The balanced person starts a project, then takes a break to rest. Then they start again, but in a different direction. Every time they stop, inertia resets, and they have to push all over again. That's why they stay in the same place. They think they're moving because they're always doing something, but in reality, they're just starting from zero again and again. Focused people, on the other hand, keep their attention locked in until they hit momentum. And once momentum kicks in, the growth becomes exponential. Here's the key difference. Balance divides your energy. Focus multiplies it. When all your attention is in one place, your energy compounds. Every skill you learn builds on the last. Every hour you spend makes the next hour more productive. Every result feeds the next. This is why focused people seem to suddenly blow up in success. It wasn't sudden. They were building momentum all along, but it was invisible until it broke through. And that's why focus leads to financial breakthroughs faster than balance. Balance will make you feel good today, but focus will give you the life you want tomorrow. Now here's what's important. You don't need to focus on everything forever. You only need to focus hard enough to get through inertia. Once the system, habit, or business is moving on its own, you can shift your focus to the next level without losing progress on the first. That's how I went from manually selling in my area to having a nationwide customer base. First, I focused on learning how to sell online. Then, once the process was running smoothly, I focused on marketing strategies to reach more people. Then I shifted again to improving product quality and delivery speed. Each stage built on the last, and each one required less effort because the foundation was already in motion. So the next time you think you need balance, ask yourself, am I trying to rest before I've even built momentum? Because until you push past that first stage of resistance, you'll always feel like success is too far away. Focus is the accelerator. Balance is the brake. If you want a breakthrough, you have to know when to press the gas. When I talk about focus creating breakthroughs faster than balance, I'm not just talking about business strategies or productivity hacks. This principle is as old as the Bible itself. Let's start with Abraham. Abraham was promised by God that he would be the father of many nations. That wasn't just a small promise, it was huge. And the crazy part? When God gave him this promise, Abraham didn't have a single child with Sarah. Not one. Now here's what blows my mind. Do you know how long he had to wait? He was 75 years old when God gave him that promise in Genesis 12. Isaac wasn't born until Abraham was 100 years old. That's a 25-year gap between the promise and the fulfillment. Most people can't stay focused on something for 25 days without getting discouraged. Abraham waited 25 years. And in those years, it wasn't easy. There were doubts. There were moments where it looked like the promise would never happen. But he kept his focus on what God said, not on what his circumstances were showing him. If Abraham lived by balance, he would have said, well, maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I should just accept life as it is. He could have spent those years trying to feel good instead of holding on to the promise. But he didn't. He kept his attention on the vision God gave him, even when every year that passed made it seem more impossible. That's the kind of focus we're talking about. The kind that ignores the distractions of time, the whispers of doubt, and the opinions of people who say, it's too late. Now let's talk about David. David's story in 1 Samuel 17 is another perfect example. When he showed up at the battlefield, the entire army of Israel was paralyzed with fear because of Goliath. Every single man there was focused on the size of the giant, the danger, and the possibility of death. That was their balance, weighing the risk, protecting themselves, doing nothing. But David? He wasn't distracted by the giant's size or the roar of the enemy. His focus was locked on something else, God's covenant with Israel. He knew that an uncircumcised Philistine had no right to defy the armies of the living God. That covenant was his anchor. And because of that focus, David didn't see Goliath as an unbeatable threat. He saw him as an opportunity for God's glory to be displayed. He didn't overthink it. He didn't need armor like Saul's. He didn't need the approval of the army. He took what he had, stepped forward, and acted. David's focus was so strong that while everyone else was frozen, he was already running toward the giant. And that's the power of focus. It makes you move when others stay still. It turns impossible situations into defining moments. See the pattern here? In both stories, the breakthrough didn't happen instantly. It required focus over time, in the face of pressure, in the face of doubt, and in the face of fear. Balance would have told Abraham to stop hoping and just enjoy life. Balance would have told David to stay safe with the rest of the soldiers. But focus refuses to let go of the goal. Focus stays locked in until the promise manifests. And here's the thing, when you read these stories, it's easy to forget that these were real people with real emotions. Abraham felt the weight of the years. David felt the danger of facing a trained warrior. But both of them had something most people today don't have. They knew where to fix their eyes. That's what makes focus so powerful. It's not just about working hard. It's about locking your attention on something bigger than your fears, something more important than your comfort. When I think about my own life and business, I realize the same principle applies. There were days when results were slow, when doubts were loud, and when giving up would have been the balanced thing to do. But I kept my eyes on the goal, just like Abraham kept his eyes on the promise, and David kept his eyes on the covenant. If you want to break through, you have to stop letting distractions pull you in 100 directions. You have to decide that your focus is worth protecting at all costs. And maybe your giant isn't a literal warrior. It's your financial debt, your failing business, your lack of confidence, or your environment that tells you you'll never make it. Maybe your 25 years of waiting is a long season where nothing seems to be changing. The question is, will you keep your focus through it? Or will you trade it for temporary comfort? Because here's the truth. Breakthroughs don't come to those who seek balance first. They come to those who keep their attention locked in until the momentum shifts in their favor. And when it does, just like Abraham and David, you'll look back and realize that your focus didn't just bring you closer to your goal, it defined who you became in the process. Here's the thing I want you to really take away. Focus is not just a productivity tip. It's a spiritual principle. It's deeply tied to faith, and faith is tied to results. When you focus, you're not just saying, I'm working on something. You're saying, I trust the process that God set in motion. Look at Abraham again. Every year that passed without Isaac being born could have been another reason to quit believing. The world would have called him foolish for holding on to a promise that seemed impossible. But Abraham wasn't focused on what the world was saying. He was focused on what God said. And here's the key. When your focus is anchored to God's truth, no delay can destroy it. David's focus was the same way. He didn't go into battle thinking, well, maybe I'll win, maybe I won't. He went in already knowing the outcome because he was locked on God's covenant. That kind of focus doesn't come from wishing. It comes from being so rooted in what you believe that nothing else can distract you. Now, here's why this matters for you. In life, you're going to have seasons where everything around you is trying to pull your focus away from your calling, your business, your mission. You'll have friends who tell you to take it easy. You'll see other people chasing comfort while you're putting in the work. You'll have moments where the results aren't showing up yet, and quitting looks tempting. But you need to remember this. Balance will keep you comfortable, but focus will make you grow. And growth is what leads to breakthroughs. The reason focus produces results faster than balance is because growth requires intention, and intention requires attention. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. If your attention is scattered, your energy will be weak. But if your attention is concentrated, like sunlight through a magnifying glass, it can burn through obstacles that balanced people can't even dent. This is why, in my own business, the seasons where I saw the most growth were the ones where I went all in. I wasn't worried about perfect balance. I was obsessed with building momentum. And momentum is powerful. It's like in physics, where it takes the most energy to get an object moving at first, but once it's in motion, it takes far less to keep it going. That's what focus does. At first, it feels heavy. You're pushing, pushing, pushing. But if you keep your eyes on the goal and don't stop, you hit a point where momentum carries you forward. That's when results start coming faster, and it feels like the breakthrough happened overnight, when in reality, it was built in silence over months or even years of focus. Think about it. Abraham's breakthrough didn't start when Isaac was born. It started the day he chose to believe and kept believing. David's victory over Goliath didn't start when the stone hit the giant. It started the moment he decided that God's covenant mattered more than fear. So if you're in business, or you're chasing a dream, or you're trying to break out of financial struggle, stop asking how to balance everything perfectly. Balance can wait. Get focused. Lock in. Decide that this is the thing you're going to give your best energy to. And yes, people will misunderstand you. Some will say you're obsessed. Some will say you're risking too much. Some will tell you to slow down. But remember, nobody ever built something extraordinary by giving it half their attention. When you focus, you align yourself with how God actually works. He doesn't give you a seed and say, plant it when you feel like it. He says, sow it, water it, protect it, and trust me for the growth. That's focus. It's about being consistent with the right actions until the harvest comes. And here's the financial part. Focus builds wealth faster because it compounds your effort. A scattered person tries 10 things halfway and gets little results from each. A focused person does one thing fully and reaps all the reward from it. And once that one thing has momentum, they can build the next one. That's how you multiply income without multiplying exhaustion. In the Bible, the people who received great blessings weren't the ones who chased every opportunity. They were the ones who stayed committed to the promise God gave them. Abraham didn't try to become the father of many nations one year, and then switch to another dream the next. David didn't decide to fight Goliath one day and then back out to keep things safe. They locked in. So here's my question to you. What is your Isaac? What is your Goliath? What is the one thing God has put in front of you that requires your full attention right now? If you can answer that and commit to it, you'll experience something most people never will. You'll see how focus turns time into multiplication. You'll watch as years of effort collapse into a season of rapid breakthroughs. And when that happens, you'll understand why I will always choose focus over balance in the seasons that matter most. Because balance might make you feel good today, but focus will change your life forever.